Hi, everybody. Welcome to our best and worst of somebody we do every single week as part of a way to introduce you to us from the Hidden Gems podcast. We have a lot of fun doing the podcast, and we hope that if you enjoy this shorter video, that you'll enjoy and listen to the longer video slash podcast that you can find wherever you listen to podcasts. And this week we have Thanksgiving. So I was trying to think of who would be a good person to do for best and worst. And I thought of planes, trains, and automobiles. And so we're doing the best and worst of Steve Martin. So it's pretty fun to talk about such a classic comedy legend as Steve Martin. And Ryan, thanks so much for joining me to do this.
It's great to be with you as always, Rachel. And yeah, Steve Martin is one of those comedians that has remained consistent throughout the majority of his career.
Yeah.
He's had a lot of peaks and some valleys, but at the end of the day, he's one of those guys that has just been around forever, and in many ways is still doing it to the point where, I mean, up until nowadays at least, he was doing comedy shows on the road with his friend Martin Short, and one of them was actually recorded for Netflix, and it was actually really good. So it seems like he's a dude who is just very content, happy, and just enjoying himself. And I mean, considering the amount of cool stuff that he's done in his life, I mean, that just makes me happy knowing that.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have that many clunkers. I mean, because most comedians have a lot of clunkers because comedy is just really hard. It's really hard to make people laugh, and so he doesn't have that many. And so it was an interesting exercise to do to talk about his best and worst. And for his best, there were a lot that I could have picked. I really enjoy Leap of Faith. I really enjoy Three Amigos. I think is really funny. I uh, I had a lot on there, but when push comes to shove, my favorite Steve Martin performance is Father of the Bride. I think that he is so good as this sweet but kind of crazy father who gets who gets kind of out of control with this wedding, which is totally over the top and totally ridiculous. This wedding, and his scene alone when he flips out over the hot dogs, I love it so much. It's one of the only scenes from a movie that I have memorized verbatim. And I was like, I want to buy 8 hot dogs and 8 hot dog buns, and nobody sells 8 hot dog buns. They only sell 12. And I love it. I think it's so funny, and I I love him and Diane Keaton in that. I think they have really wonderful chemistry. I think that Kimberly Williams Paisley is luminous and lovely in it. I think it's definitely one of the best remakes that we've ever seen, and I think it's Martin Short is hilarious in it, Franck, and I actually enjoy the sequel as well. I think the sequel's charming, and they did just this summer. They did the Father of the Bride Part 3-ish, the little Zoom movie thing, which was so cute. I loved it. And so it has to be my number one.
Yeah, I love Father of the Bride and even Father of the Bride Part Two. I love both of those movies
Yeah.
equally, and the chemistry between all three actors, father, mother, and daughter, is really something special. And one of the fondest memories I have of the original Father of the Bride is when I can't remember the daughter's name now off the top of my head. My brain,
Annie.
thank you, my brain is working excellently today. But when Annie announces she's getting married and Steve Martin gets all passive aggressive and he's like, "Oh, so is he on any wanted lists that we know about?" And he
Yeah.
just he takes such a leap.
Yeah.
And Annie just flips out and like, "I tell you, you get married and you're not happy for me." And he's like, "I am. I just want to make sure I call Interpol later." And it's just
Yeah.
it's such a great dynamic between all three of them, and especially in part two, which I think is not as fondly as remembered, but I watched it so many times I can remember several scenes from that movie off the top
Mm.
of my head as well. When Diane Keaton announces she's pregnant, and he's like, "Oh, by the time that he's able to drive, we'll be 60," and then is like, and then and then it just piles on, and just so many great scenes and just a lot of memorable characters. Martin Short in there, of course, he's always funny. So yeah, love both these movies.
So, what is your first pick or your best pick for Steve Martin?
So my favorite performance from Steve Martin is from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yeah.
This is a movie that I watch every year around Thanksgiving time, and I absolutely laugh my head off every time I watch it. No matter how many times that I do watch it, it just never gets old to me. We all know this story. Steve Martin plays a guy who has to get from New York to Chicago to celebrate Thanksgiving with his family. And well, it's a lot easier said than done because unfortunately the travel situation is like entering the ninth circle of hell. Like there's no getting out of it. But he finds a saving grace in a shower curtain ring salesman. Yes, that is his job, and he's played by the legendary John Candy, who was
Yeah.
taken from us far too soon. Martin and Candy they just create magic with each other because from the very off, like Martin just does not like this guy, but he recognizes that if he's going to get home, that's his only hope. And unlike other movies where it's like build up, build up, build up, build up, build up, then explosion, it's just a little bit of build up. And then Steve Martin's like, I am already sick of you. And John Candy gives one of the best acting moments of his career, the whole I like me, my wife likes me speech, which just gets me every single time. And then Steve Martin has the legendary quote of "Have a point. It makes it so much more entertaining for the listener." And just I could quote that movie for hours. It's one of the best comedies ever made from a group of people who were working at the top of their game.
Yeah.
John Hughes basically ruled the late 1980s. Breakfast Club, Weird Science, Pretty in Pink. I could go on. Wrote
Yeah.
the Home Alone movies. Just yeah,
Yeah.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is awesome.
Yeah, I almost picked this and then I knew that you were going to, so I knew we'd cover it. It's the whole reason why we picked him to begin with. It's such a classic. It's so funny. It's and I think it holds up even to this day. The jokes hold up, which is not always the case with comedies from that era. And yeah, it's a great choice. It's just really funny if you want to laugh a lot, and anyone who's traveled or traveled extensively can relate to just the shenanigans. So good choice. So for the worst of Steve Martin, so there weren't that many bad ones. They're really not. Probably my least favorite would probably be DreamWorks Home, which he plays a character in that film, and I'm not a fan of that.
You will
Uh,
be shushed.
yeah, he plays Captain Smeck. But if you're going to live action, probably the Cheaper by the Dozen movies are my least favorite. They're harmless, they're fine, but I love the book, and they have nothing to do with the book, and so I except for the name, and so I wish they had done something closer to the book. But it's a harmless throwaway family shenanigans comedy, as you know, two movies with the pretty fun cast, but not that's probably my least favorite of his.
Yeah, I remember liking both of these movies. Okay, I think there are some people who are like, oh, I absolutely hate this movie. I'm like, why? Like
Yeah,
it's just it's I don't want to I hate using the term disposable, but I think that's the best thing that I can.
they're harmless, I is how I would describe it. Yeah.
That works too. And I remember being and in any way interested in it because that was around the peak of my Disney Channel fame, or at least approaching the peak of it. And
Mm-hmm.
Hilary Duff was one of their biggest stars going at the time. So I was like, anything Hilary Duff's in, I'm definitely seeing, and that was my real only real interest in it.
Yeah. So what is your worst?
So my worst, and again, this isn't necessarily the worst movie I've ever seen, but it's like splitting hairs, and I'm gonna go with the Pink Panther remake from
Oh,
2006. Again, this isn't necessarily terrible. I think Steve Martin is trying, and it's clear that he's a fan of the Pink Panther cartoons as well as the movies starring Peter Sellers all the way back in the '60s. But it feels like some of the jokes in the movie were kind of desperate. There were some funny jokes in there where the relationship between him and Jean Reno, where he's like, Ponton, I'm going to try and hit you sometimes, and you won't see it coming. And then Ponton hits him, and he's like, good one. And Ponton's like, thank you. Like, and they do that several times. That's actually funny. But then there are other times where it just feels awkward. Like Kevin Kline's in there, he's trying to do a French accent, trying, and it just, I don't know. It's just
yeah.
it like that in the sequel. It just kind of it, it feels desperate. That's all I will say.
Yeah. Yeah, the jokes, most of them don't really land that well, and it's a lot of just sort of slapstick, and it's not all that funny. It's kind of like a lot of this is French, so it's funny. I don't know. Um,
Yeah,
and so yeah.
there's a part where Clouseau gets his hand stuck in this like vase, and before he leaves the room, he asks the guy who owns the vase, like, "Oh, by the way, is this vase real?" And the guy's like, "Oh, it's worthless." And he's like, "Okay, good." And then Clouseau smashes it on this table, and the table just disintegrates, and he runs out. And the guy who owns the table's like, "But that table was priceless." That
Right.
that was actually pretty funny.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So let us know what your best and worst of Steve Martin is and what you think of our picks. We'd love to have your thoughts. And I hope you all have a really great Thanksgiving week and that you're all safe and enjoy some good movie watching. And Ryan, how can people find you?
They can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at RyanCam20. Then there's, of course, my YouTube channel, just Ryan Cam. This past week, I released my videos for my review for season 1 of The Mandalorian. Long overdue, yes, I know. Then I jumped full force back into the AFI project with my reviews for Philadelphia Story, which I released on Tuesday. And Thursday, I released my review for Shane. Upcoming this week, I'll be releasing my reviews. I'll be releasing my reviews for. Sorry, my list went away
Okay.
on. I'll start it, and then upcoming,
Okay.
and then this up and coming week, I'll be covering It Happened One Night, A Streetcar Named Desire, and Rear Window. So lot of a lot of stuff coming to the channel this coming week. If you all haven't subscribed to me or checked me out, please do. I put a lot of time and effort into it. So if you haven't checked me out, give me a chance.
Definitely subscribe and make sure you listen to our full episode on Hidden Gems on Hallmark Movies Now. Check that out. Make sure you subscribe to the Hallmarkies podcast. We've got a lot of really good stuff coming out over there. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. If you're listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We really appreciate that. And if you're watching on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We also have our Patreon group, which is a lot of fun, and we have our merch store, which has lots of festive designs, which will be going on sale. So perfect time to get a gift for your loved one over at the store. So check that out at the T Public Hallmarkies store. And thanks again so much, and we'll talk to you all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.